Happy New Year, everyone, and happy MLK Day. Wow, 2023, good job making it here. Really, it's a lot, and I appreciate you. As the holidays are wrapping up, I thought it'd be really cool to talk about some animated holiday specials, given how big their presence and impact are, especially during the holiday season. Regardless of how much the general public respects or appreciates animation, it's truly amazing to think it was over 50 years ago the stop-motion Frosty the Snowman special was created, and it still plays every December. Other prominent examples I can think of off the top of my head are the Charlie Brown Christmas special, or even somewhat more modern classic, the Hey Arnold Christmas special, that revolves around uniting a father with his daughter whom he was separated from during the Vietnam War. This is one of the only depictions of the Vietnam War I can think of in a cartoon, and is widely considered a favorite episode of Hey Arnold. These three examples are all Christmas specials and have been covered a countless amount of times online, so I thought it would be unique and educational for both myself and others to look into Kwanzaa specials. Two of the only Kwanzaa specials I could remember off the top of my head were the Proud Family and Rugrats specials. I asked some friends if they could remember any, but these were the only two they mentioned as well. Naturally, I thought to myself there's gotta be way more Kwanzaa specials I'm forgetting, or I must have missed. So I checked, and I was really surprised to see a single-digit amount of Kwanzaa specials, especially considering how the ones I remember are from 20 years ago. God, I'm getting old. I thought surely more specials would have been created by now. This leads me to the inspiration behind this video, in which I seek to answer the three questions: what exactly is Kwanzaa? Are the Kwanzaa specials any good? And why are there so few Kwanzaa specials? Regardless of whether you're interested in Kwanzaa or not, I think it'll be interesting to analyze the effectiveness and educational aspects of these holiday episodes as we watch and break these episodes down. I understand the topic of Kwanzaa may be considered somewhat controversial or contentious, for reasons I'll get into later, but regardless of your opinions on Kwanzaa, I'd like to create an educational and respectful environment. I'm open to any feedback, just be respectful to other people and other cultures, that's all I ask. Kwanzaa is a holiday that I think many people only know about from animation, which is really interesting to think about when you consider there's been very little in terms of Kwanzaa specials in animation. As a white guy talking about Kwanzaa in animation, this may be a bit of a precarious subject to speak about, but one of my biggest motivations to animate is because of my interest and passion for representation, and that extends to depictions of race, gender, sexuality, and more. So while I may not be the most qualified to discuss this topic, part of my desire to make this video is because no one else really is talking about it, and it's hard to even find on TV nowadays, so I think when no one is talking about it, it kind of falls to the wayside a little. I think a lot of people nowadays are unfamiliar with Kwanzaa since they didn't grow up with the Proud Family or Rugrats or Futurama, so let's talk about them and see what we can find out. Part 1. What the heck is Kwanzaa? I'll be honest, before I started working on this video, I didn't remember much about what Kwanzaa is and why it's celebrated, and from a lot of my research, people said they didn't learn much about it growing up, whether their schools were predominantly black or white. Kwanzaa is a cultural, non-religious holiday created in 1966 by Maulana Karenga, a black nationalist who sought to provide black people in America with a holiday that celebrated their culture, history, and origins. Kwanzaa is characterized by the Kinara, a 7-candle candelabra, along with the 7 main principles. These 7 principles are Umoja, unity; Kujichagulia, self-determination; Ujima, collective work and responsibility; Ujamaa, cooperative economics, such as helping those in need and supporting black-owned businesses; Nia, purpose; Kumba, creativity.
And the 6th day of Kwanzaa is wow, this is really complicated. The 6th day is Kumba.
And Imani, faith.
Imani! Hey, we almost named Penny that. Faith.
The name Kwanzaa is derived from the phrase Matunda ya Kwanza, which means first fruits in Swahili. Swahili is the most widely spoken African language, but Kwanzaa isn't really celebrated in Africa, and was more so intended for the American experience relating to the African diaspora. There was many significant civil rights movements and events in the 1960s that can be accredited to the inspiration behind Kwanzaa. The movements of this decade may be most widely characterized by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech in 1963, but there are several other significant and interesting events in the 60s that should be noted for the foundation of Kwanzaa. Civil rights movements picked up in 1960 with the Greensboro sit-ins, in which North Carolina students sat in white-only segregated sections of a Woolworth's market. This led to the creation of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and symbolized that together a difference could be made at a grassroots level. The 1960 Olympics were the first to be publicly televised and showed the success of African American athletes such as Wilma Rudolph, the first American woman to win 3 gold medals in track and field, or Muhammad Ali, still known as Cassius Clay at this time, winning the gold medal in boxing. The final event and arguably the biggest catalyst to the creation of Kwanzaa was the Watts Riots in 1965 Los Angeles. Also known as the Watts Rebellion, the riot began when a black man, Marquette Fry, was pulled over for suspicion of driving while intoxicated. During the arrest, there was an altercation and a crowd began to gather. A woman was dragged away from this crowd for allegedly spitting on an officer, and when the rumor quickly spread she was believed to have been pregnant, this amplified the anger and tension of the crowd and is considered the approximate timestamp of the beginning of the Watts riots. This lasted for 6 days, killing 34 people and injuring over 1,000. The Watts riot is often characterized by the massive fires seen in photographs. Fire departments struggled to help due to the constant violence and tension. This event is seen as a product of neglect, an abusive police force, and poverty, and Watts County is still recovering from this today. The first Kwanzaa was celebrated the following year, and the Watts riot is widely considered a catalyst for Kwanzaa's creation, a non-violent, non-religious holiday to celebrate African American culture and community. So now that we understand the context of why Kwanzaa was created and the symbolism of what it represents, let's take a look at these Kwanzaa specials and determine how faithful and educational they are, as well as if they're actually entertaining good episodes or not. So the main Kwanzaa episodes I'm gonna go over are the Proud Family special, the Rugrats special, the Futurama Kwanzaa special. Oh my gosh, is that a Kwanzaa bot? That's a Kwanzaa bot! And it's not really a Kwanzaa special, but I do think the Boondocks holiday special should be mentioned in this video. So let's begin with the Proud Family special. This episode starts with a family doing Christmas shopping when they see a homeless family. Trudy insists they give them some money, but when they turn around, they've mysteriously vanished. The daughter kinda looks like an anime character, like I could see her in Final Fantasy, I don't know. Anyways, Oscar and Penny go to the homeless shelter to find the family, and I think this is a really nice touch. This episode doesn't just educate on Kwanzaa, but it shows settings like the homeless shelter, which show the importance of the holidays and shed light on people in hard situations. The family comes over for Christmas, but they insist they don't celebrate Christmas or buy into the end of the year capitalism, so they decline the gifts. This section of the episode cleverly divides the family into 3 sections, with a conversation between Oscar, Joseph, and cousin Bobby, in which they discuss how Joseph used to be a construction worker, and Oscar is upset the kids are playing with the box more than the playground they built.
Well, all right, babies. It's all set. Look at them. I work hard to make the money, even harder to put the thing together, and they play with the box.
That's because the toy is not what's important.
Well, the working hard sure is. But I guess you wouldn't understand that.
Wrong again. Look, Oscar, you have 3 beautiful kids. You should spend more time with them. Sure, Oscar. You have a nice home, nice things. But what does all that really mean?
Wait, don't tell me. Regis asked this question last night.
In the kitchen, Trudy asks Margaret about how she feels being homeless. Margaret says she feels liberated, that she's not attached to the material goods.
Trudy, I just got tired of things taking over.
That sounds like somebody got tired of you not paying for your things.
You really don't miss having a home? I mean, I can't imagine not having my own home.
Girl, I got news for you. You don't own this home. It owns you.
Oh, I know what you're trying to say, but you're wrong. I'm not attached to anything here. I'm not like that at... Oh, no! Not my good china!
What do you care? You're not attached. Whoops! Dropped another one.
Trudy kind of screams like Lois in that clip everyone says is the best voice acting clip ever. I don't know. And then we have Penny, who brings Stephanie to meet her friends, and this part is a little more odd to me. Like, sometimes I think Penny's friends were a bit mean here, but I guess they've never really been a group to be fake polite if they find someone odd. I don't know how I feel about this scene. The kids never come back into the episode, but I think they serve a purpose to establish the perspective kids may have on Stephanie's family and being homeless. Stephanie likes reading and says she's friends with her parents, and that money is nice, but not everything. And they're like, okay, I'ma head out. Penny's a good friend and stays with Stephanie, who would rather sit and read than go to the movies. I think it further shows her lifestyle and values in a way that contrasts with everyone else, which I think is pretty nice.
Now what? Here, take this. I've already read this part.
Did you just rip a page out of your book? No, I can understand passing on a movie to read. It's hard, very hard, but I can see why someone may have that preference. This is too far though. Also, she's reading the Tao of Pooh, which is a real book that serves as an introduction to Taoism, a philosophy and religion of Chinese origin. It's a bit subtle since she only mentions the title, but I think of all the books to choose from, this was an interesting one, especially considering the family has established they don't celebrate Christmas. Some people view Kwanzaa as an opposition to Christmas, so the insert of Taoism may be seen as their alternative religion, but at the same time, it's not necessarily always viewed as a religion by people, so it may go to show the importance of harmony their family has and insists on, as represented by Taoism. The next day, the family shows up in the Proud House again, but this time it's to celebrate Kwanzaa, which if you didn't know, is from the day after Christmas to New Year's Day each year. So this checks out. I think this part is really well done and why the episode is so memorable for people even 20 years later. It shows the Kwanzaa table and goes over the significance of the day, and they partake in traditions such as having an elder give thanks. They sprinkle in some quips from Oscar, which keeps the episode fun and lively.
First, we need an elder to pour a tambico and say a word or two in praise of a worthy ancestor. Sugar Mama?
I thought you said worthy ancestor.
But it's really well done, and I think this can be widely accredited to the education of what Kwanzaa is. They partake in activities, traditional attire, and just really sweet scenes. The episode also has this really nice Kwanzaa song that's been stuck in my head all week while making this video.
We come from the ancient ones, and we're children of the sun, and we're one big family. Come join
Nia, purpose.
This episode ends with Oscar's friend Felix showing up, saying he had to cut his vacation short because a foreman of his quit. This gives Oscar the idea to find Joseph again to get him the job, as he's shown he was a construction worker, using the jungle gym example from earlier. But when they get to the homeless shelter, the family isn't there. Not only that, the woman says she's never seen anyone with that description. However, they run into Tom Holland's family, holding the same sign Stephanie had, and the father says he's a construction worker. I think it's a really nice touch that they pass on the generosity to another family. It really is a good way of showing them extending the spirit of Kwanzaa to others and not just passing it back and forth, especially when you consider that Joseph, Margaret, and Stephanie are already pretty enlightened. But the episode ends with them reflecting on how they learned faith, heritage, and to be grateful for each other through the spirit of Kwanzaa. There's so many nice qualities of this episode. I think it's paced really well. They cleverly divide the characters into different scenes and establish so many different parts of the holiday. It looks and sounds really nice, and I guess I should quickly mention the guest cast voices for this episode include Raven Simone and Samuel L. Jackson. But yeah, this is a great episode, and I think people really remember it the most when thinking about Kwanzaa episodes. Moving on to the Rugrats Kwanzaa special, this episode is another nice Kwanzaa episode. I didn't watch Rugrats a ton as a kid. I feel like I'm kinda in between where I enjoy when I watch it, but I kinda make a face sometimes when they say things like, "What is Kwanzaa?" Clearly, I'm not the target demographic. I do think it's very interesting how Rugrats broke down more complicated topics and issues, so let's see how they handle the topic of Kwanzaa. The episode takes place in the Carmichael household, in which their cool gray aunt shows up. Aunt T brings gifts for Kwanzaa, and I think this episode is pretty neat how it turns the celebration into an episode with an actual plot. Throughout the episode, as they're setting up for Kwanzaa, Susie feels bad that she has no accomplishments or awards like everyone else. Insert unfunny participation trophy joke here. And I think it works really well in this episode because they emphasize the point about Kwanzaa being a celebration of their great people. Obviously, they come to the resolution that to be a great person, you don't need to have any kinds of accomplishments and trophies and whatnot. And they also tie it together really well by showing flashback stories of the mother and the aunt in their lifetime, such as the mother being able to go to medical school because Great Aunt T helped pay for it for her.
Family needs a little help and no one thinks to ask me. Wow, what in blazes have your Uncle Charles and I've been working so hard for if not to help family when they need it? Mwah. Baby, I know you'll make a fine doctor someday.
And that's why she's a doctor today. Or Great Aunt T encountering Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose car broke down on the side of the road as he was driving on his way to make his famous I Have a Dream speech.
Thank you, sir.
You know, son, I never did get your name.
It's Martin Luther King, ma'am.
So it's a pretty clever way to incorporate both backstory of the family and to show an audience who Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is in a way, but they also have some other really nice qualities, such as showing traditional Kwanzaa gifts. The gifts are done in a nice way too, because Susie's given a big old book full of photos, which she doesn't find necessarily interesting.
Those are Elisa's and Buster's. This is what I got. Goodness, isn't that just Zabby, Philip?
I think she got chipped.
Hey! It was a different time. It was a different time. But once the stories are told of their family members, she really values this book, and it's a really sweet touch. I think it is a really nice touch, especially when you consider that Kwanzaa gifts are really supposed to be educational in nature, and that the holiday doesn't really have a focus on gifts at all. In the episode, Susie tries to do a lot of different things that may make her a successful and accomplished person, but they just come off as just a bit dull. Like, it's almost impressive how drab they can make a science experiment gone wrong scene.
You're all finished. Gosh, we look like brother and sister, except you don't got as many freckles.
Okay, Chucky, I see you. But it is a pretty sweet episode, and I think Aunt T is a really refreshing, interesting character, so I think the episode works well as a result. I think while the Proud Family special focused a bit more on the education of what the holiday is and how it's celebrated, and what the principles of Kwanzaa represent, the Rugrats special seeks to appeal a little more to an emotional angle of what Kwanzaa represents. The episode has a nice emphasis on family and telling stories and tradition, and it embodies the spirit of Kwanzaa in a nice, distinct way. So let's move on to our third, essentially our final Kwanzaa episode, this being the Kwanzaa episode of Futurama. This episode is a bit shorter, but it's part of a collective episode that has a holiday special for Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa respectively. So while this episode is a bit shorter and lacks the structure of traditional episodes, it still has some pretty interesting features as a Kwanzaa special. Like, that is a Kwanzaa bot. That is a Kwanzaa bot. The Futurama Kwanzaa special starts with the crew arriving at Hermie's house to celebrate Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa bot breaks through the wall and explains what Kwanzaa is.
Hey, Kool-Aid's here! No, child, that's not a made-up character. It's Kwanzaa Bot.
And I'm gonna tell y'all how we celebrate Kwanzaa.
Through a rap. I don't think it's terribly interesting. It kind of just jumbles different principles together, and I have a hard time trying to retain any of its valuable info on what Kwanzaa is.
Could Emoji Chagulia.
And Umoja. On the wrist. Now we get it. Sit back down. There's gonna be a test. I think there's one called Nia, but I don't speak Swahili.
I think the most interesting part of the rap, and probably the whole episode, is that the Kwanzaa bot is voiced by Coolio. After recording this, I found out Coolio recorded footage for Kwanzaa bot for the Futurama reboot the same month he passed, September of 2022. It's sad to hear, but David X. Cohen, a Futurama showrunner, said Coolio was one of their favorite guests to have on. He was always upbeat and enthusiastic. The episode will be dedicated to Coolio, and Coolio was on the record saying, "Everyone loves Kwanzaa bot," so I'm inclined to agree. Kwanzaa bot insists that candles used for the kinara need to be made from beeswax. So they try to get beeswax, but all the bees are suffering from parasites, so Fry has the idea to get beeswax from these dangerous space bees that nearly killed them in the past. It turns out these bees are acting strangely because they too are suffering from these parasites, but Hermes helps them understand the spirit of Kwanzaa. The bees forgive each other, and it turns out the spirit of Kwanzaa ends up killing the parasites. As a result, the bees end up returning to their senses, causing them to attack the group again.
Thank you, my human brother. Your message of unity has touched our souls. We are once again of a single hive mind.
Oh, yeah. Hooray! Kwanzaa bot's here to say... Oh, they killed him. Joyous Kwanzaa, everybody!
So that's pretty much it. They get turned into candles and the episode ends there. It's not a very satisfying conclusion, but all 3 holiday specials in this episode of Futurama have abrupt endings like this. It does stretch a bit too thin, especially when they go over Kwanzaa, which people aren't nearly as familiar with as Christmas and Hanukkah, and it's not really too good of an episode per Futurama's typical quality either. So it doesn't hold up nearly as well as the Proud Family or Rugrats specials that had tripled the amount of time and sought to educate more on what Kwanzaa is, as well as forming well-structured episodes that don't feel out of place compared to other episodes of these shows. So to wrap up the Kwanzaa specials, I want to quickly go over a part of the Boondocks holiday special. The Boondocks special is literally called a Huey Freeman Christmas, and it's not really a Kwanzaa special. Talking about the Boondocks Christmas special as a Kwanzaa special almost seems to be crudely lumping together the holidays because they're black. So while I don't really want to go over the episode as a whole since it doesn't fall in this category, there are several really good and funny moments I wanted to share. This is mainly about Huey's teacher in this episode. He just means well, but is a funny representation of well-meaning but ignorant people.
The 6th day is Kumbah. Kumbah.
Harold Kennedy Uberwitz was my history teacher. He was culturally sensitive.
And on Kumbah, the elder, okay, that would be me, leads everyone in the Harambe salute. And that goes like... Harambe! Okay, great. So who wants to join me in the Harambe salute? Anyone? Huey? Harambe! 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 Harambe!
He signs a contract that allows Huey full control and budget over the Christmas play, which leads to huge castings.
For the role of the third wise man, we have Mr. Fogelberry or Denzel Washington.
I say Denzel.
Yeah, me too. Okay, and for the role of Mary, we have third grade science teacher Mrs. Peterson or Angela Bassett.
Well, Mrs. Peterson gave a serious read.
Yeah, she sure did.
But I say Angela Bassett.
Yeah, me too.
This is definitely a classic episode of the Boondocks I highly recommend. It's just really funny, so definitely check it out if you're still looking for more holiday specials to watch. So that's about it for Kwanzaa specials in animation. There are other instances of Kwanzaa in animation, like in Arthur, but these just have all the holidays and they have a character that happens to celebrate Kwanzaa and Hanukkah and whatnot. So I don't really consider these a Kwanzaa special per se. I do think having a holiday special solely dedicated to Kwanzaa is a big commitment, and this sheds light on how impactful a show like The Proud Family is, even today. I would say my favorite of these is still the Proud Family episode. I think it has really good pacing and structure, and is a really nice episode, whether it was about Kwanzaa or not. I think this episode taught way more people about what Kwanzaa is than a lot of schools, from what I've read. And getting back to the importance of representation, I think it is really valuable to have a source like this to educate people on a potential way to create a sense of community and culture. I've read several articles regarding the decline of Kwanzaa, and there's a lot of reasons why people feel it shouldn't really be celebrated nowadays. From the controversies and arrest of its founder, or people believing Kwanzaa is an opposition to Christmas or Christianity, to many other reasons, such as questioning why the holiday uses the Swahili language, if most African Americans are from Western Central Africa, and the main symbol being a kinara, the candelabra that looks like the Jewish Hanukkah menorah, with one less candle. Some people feel a holiday celebrating the Emancipation Proclamation would align with their identity as Americans better. I've read hundreds of comments of why people celebrate or don't celebrate Kwanzaa, and I don't have the insight, and it's not my place to make statements on this subject. This video isn't about why you should or shouldn't celebrate Kwanzaa, it's about looking at the Kwanzaa specials of shows. In these specials, we saw the desire to help one's community, to appreciate family, history, and culture, but because of the decline in popularity of the holiday, these specials are almost more of a relic of the past. I looked up shows with black protagonists and typed Kwanzaa at the end, like Craig of the Creek Kwanzaa, just to see if by chance I missed any Kwanzaa specials that weren't mentioned anywhere, but all I could find was a Cartoon Network Facebook post wishing people a happy Kwanzaa, and I guess as expected for comments on a public cartoon channel Facebook page, the post had several angry people saying Cartoon Network is all black and gay today. What? My favorite was this guy saying bring Dragon Ball to India, like now is not the time. Anyways, it's a little nostalgic watching these, and it's a little odd to think these were the last Kwanzaa specials I could maybe ever see. I'd love to know what you think of this video. You know, smash that like button, destroy that subscribe button. What was your favorite episode mentioned today? I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on this subject. And yeah, come back next week for more animation analyses. Next episode, we're talking about Blue Lock, that soccer Squid Game show. Alright, I'll talk to you later.